to the daily quest number 15. I think my mic's on. It's been a little while, and today we're talking about Tyrael. Now, before we get to Tyrael, let's talk a little bit about the ESL Major League. We just had the playoffs this past weekend. Kubi and I did 20 hours of casting, 8 hours on the first day, 12 hours the next day. It was actually ridiculous. It was actually one of the most insane things I've ever done, because you're not supposed to talk that much and express your voice as loudly, I guess, is one way of putting it. But anyways, we saw a lot of cool things, and pretty much the next week worth of daily quests is all going to be centered around things that we saw in that tournament. I'm going to pretty much use replays from some of the competitive matches we saw to try to just look at things that aren't necessarily all that common, things that we don't really see a lot on the ladder, and try to figure out why we see maybe a little bit of something on competitive, but almost never in things like Hero League, and why it can be successful in kind of what situations. And today, well, that's Tyrael. Now, if we look at the tank list, pretty much everybody would tell you that it's all about ETC, Diablo, Stitches, and maybe Muradin, and then occasionally you'll see things like Tyrael, Sonya, Chen, and they're not a common thing. So I want to take today to just kind of talk about Tyrael builds, talk about Tyrael as a hero, and then look at some of the matches and see why Tyrael is a very good fit for certain scenarios, and just kind of go through that. So if you didn't catch those games, I don't think they're on YouTube yet. You definitely need to check out the ESL Heroes VODs, because they seriously, those almost every single match went to Game 5. It was actually just incredible day of content. But let us jump right in and look at Tyrael. Now, just jumping through this guy, if you don't know Tyrael, he is the Archangel of Justice from Diablo. And, well, he's a pretty cool guy. Now, Tyrael's trait, that's Archangel's Wrath. When you die, you become invulnerable and you explode. That sounds terrible, right? Well, he becomes like this big ball of gold, blows up, deals damage to anyone around him. So if you nearly killed that Jaina and you're on top of that Jaina, well, you just follow her with your ghost and you blow up on her, and you hopefully trade and get the kill on her. Going through his kit, he's got Eldruin's Might. I always thought it was Aldurin's Might, so rip me being a caster. It's an area of effect. You throw your sword out, and then you can teleport to that sword in the location in which you throw it. This is very useful for juking, but this can also get Tyrael incredibly strong positioning. Now, we'll get through the talents to explain, a lot of cool things that can be done with this. But Righteousness, that gives you a shield, and it gives you a shield on your nearby allies as well. So you can absorb a lot of damage with this. And then again, there are talents that make this have other properties, which are quite cool. Let's get some. Yeah, well, maybe too loud. The background music. Smite, that is a rake target area. So you literally sweep the ground or rake the ground. And this does damage, but it also increases the movement speed of allies for 2 seconds by 25%. Now, Smite used to have a really powerful talent attached to it. This music is like, the ambience is like overtaking the music. I don't know. That's fine. Used to have a really cool talent called Cast Aside. Now, ever since Tyrael lost Cast Aside, the competitive community largely just kind of went, be quiet. Just kind of said, is he actually still viable? Because it was such a good ability when it boils down to it. Like, it was really top of the line for displacement. You would be able to use Eldruin's Might to get behind your enemies, and then use Cast Aside, which was just straight up displacement. It would knock every enemy to the side, and if you angled it correctly, you could knock that Vala way out of place and then just blow her up. So he's lost that, but he's still quite good, and we're gonna get there. Now, he's got Judgment for an heroic. This is the go-to. Very rarely do we see his other heroic, which is Sanctification, but Judgment, that is you charge a target. It is a very long range. It's kind of similar to the Hunt, where you dash in and you stun a target for 1.5 seconds. Nearby enemies are knocked away, so that's displacement. So you can actually charge a target that happens to be standing next to a Nazebo, and it will knock that Nazebo away, interrupting the Ravenous Spirit. And this is sometimes we see this done, and it can be calculated so that the knockback puts someone so out of position. Even though you're judgmenting one target, the knockback provided can push that Jaina forward enough to get hooked or whatever, you know, all those kind of things. And Doctorate, yes, you are on stream. Now, let's get to his builds. Now, Tyrael has a pretty figured out build in terms of what we see in competitive. We're going to run through all of his talents. That is not the right screen. There we go. Ooh, maybe it was the right screen because Cat just appeared as soon as that happened. Magic trick, right? Okay, Cat. So yeah, I've got a build listed here, and this is something that we see on ladder quite a bit. Is just running through the quick build. If you just want to screen cap this, I can even link it to you guys here. Where's the link? Copy link. I'll put it in the chat for you. Bam. Heroes Fire. And where is ESL? That's twitch.tv/ESL_heroes. Now, looking through the build, Purge Evil, that's just additional damage on the smite. The amplified healing, he is in fact a tank. You want to have the extra, healing received because that makes him extra tanky. Battle momentum just to reduce the cooldown because the hero is largely about the utility provided by Judgment. Judgment is a play-making heroic. It's kind of like the opposite of a hook. Instead of pulling someone out of place, you dash forward with Judgment onto that target and you blow them up in convincing fashion. You can use this in synergy with something like, let's say you want to run with a Jaina and a Tyrande and you want to dive on them with Judgment and then throw that Lunar Flare Hunter's Mark and then just do a full combo on the target. It can work that way. And it's actually viable to do this on a target that goes in aggressively. So you can use Judgment both offensively and defensively. So once that Illidan's going in and diving onto your Jaina in the backline, trying to finish that kill, you then Judgment that Illidan, stunning him for 1.5 seconds and allowing your team to very easily just kind of collect themselves and then blow up that Illidan very quickly. So there's a lot of cool things that can happen with this heroic because having a target stun like that can't be dodged once it's initiated, except for like very few things, like a Lost Vikings jump can dodge it. There's a few things in the game that can be used to negate it. Typically is going to be massive, just from making those plays. Running to level 13, that's Imposing Will. This is kind of like Imposing Presence, except it's more specific. It's only when your shield is up, and it will lower their attack speed by 50%, and their movement speed is slowed by 50% for 2 seconds. Just has that additional effect of the movement speed. It's quite cool. And then Blood for Blood gives them a little bit more burst damage, a little bit more tankiness, and allow him to be in your face. And then at 20, typically you could see Hardened Shield at that level. Now there's Holy Arena, which is cool, increases the duration on Sanctification. Yeah, there's the increased Judgment cast range by 50% and reduces the cooldown by 30 seconds. Very good, definitely a viable option. And Nexus Blade's probably not going to grab that all too often in him because Hardened Shield, he is in fact typically going to be played as a tank. So let's delete all these. So you should have that screen cap memorized, blah, 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 blah. Let's just look through all of his talents. Apparently I can't just delete everything. Rip. What if I refresh? What if I refresh? Talent calculator. Tyrael. All right. Deleted. Let's just run through all of his abilities. So he's got Protection and Death. This is something that we've seen Tyrael's grab on a map like Haunted Mines, where it's going to be very short, very fast-paced, a lot of deaths. The death timers are going to be low because the game's only going to last until about the 10-12 minute mark. Well, Protection and Death gives the Archangel's Wrath 50% of their maximum health pool worth of shielding. And that is a lot of shielding. So, it might sound weird. Why would I grab a talent that rewards me for dying? But in a very fast-paced, high-kill, low-duration game, this is quite cool. So this is why we've seen this talent be picked up on a map like Haunted Mines. Heraldric Reforging that increases the damage dealt with Yeldraun's Might by 30%. Yeah, it's cool. Smite's just it's AoE. It's just more intuitive to get the additional 25% damage, and it just feels a little bit better. And actually, just kind of comparing the cooldowns, we're talking, no, they're identical. They're both 12 seconds, so not actually a difference there. And then a Regen Master, that's just a go-to for a lot of tanks. Definitely, if you're feeling a little bit nervous, definitely feel like you need a little bit more survivability, Regen Master is an option for that. But Purge Evil, typically want to be going for the damage. So looking at level 4. We've got amplified healing. This is the norm. This is typically what you're going to go for, especially if you have 1 to 2 healers or one of those like halfway healers like a Tacit or a Toronto where they have a healing ward. The amplified healing really does add up. This adds up for your globes. It adds up for tapping the well. I mean, this affects everything. We do have Vamp Assault. Amp healing is always going to be better than Vamp Assault at the end of the day. Retribution, that cooldown is lowered by 0.5 seconds for each target hit by Smite. That's cool. But it's just a crappy battle momentum. When it boils down to it, it's just a crappy battle momentum. And then level 4, we have even in death. Non-heroic abilities can be used before exploding. Great. For a few seconds while you're floating around as a ghost, you can still use abilities. I could see that being impactful in the situation where you were running a very protection in death, kind of like short duration game kind of thing. But I think amp healing is pretty much always going to be the way to go. And guys are asking in the chat, just to like confirm with everyone, there is no ESL today. This is the week off. Playoffs happened this past week. EU playoffs are still happening. ESL will return next week. There is no ESL for this week. Since we just had our playoffs. All right, back into the game, or back into the talent discussion. We have battle momentum. That's going to be your go-to. We talked about this being a crappy battle momentum, the retribution. No, you just want to go with actual battle momentum at level 7. But we have Angel's Grace. After teleporting to Altar and Smite, you gain 25 movement speed for 3 seconds. Neat. I mean, that can help you chase. It can help you escape. It's cool. It sounds fun. I don't know if it's really that impactful, because battle momentum, I mean, that's reduced cooldown on all of your abilities and heroics for every time you hit something by 1 second. It's just such a good generic talent. Reciprocate, when your shield expires, it explodes. I've seen cool things with this. You can definitely use this for like a little bit more aggressive material, but at the end of the day, you still are a tank, and it's not going to be super impactful. And increase the shield duration by 100%. Zealotry, I mean, it's duration, it's not amount. It doesn't give you more shielding, it just makes your shielding last longer. And this is kind of cool if you pair it with something like Opposing Will, since this is all about being active while your shield is active. It can be pretty impactful, and it's definitely something worth considering doing. Now, the shield typically lasts 4 seconds, and it's a 12-second cooldown. So does the title lie? Oh, is my Twitch title wrong? Chocolate Cow in the house. All right, but I'll have to double take the Twitch title on that. But yeah, so when you consider that it's a 12-second cooldown, and you can get the increased shield duration by 100%, so it gives you an 8 seconds. So it's only 4 seconds when your shields aren't up. That's kind of good in that regard. I mean, that's 4 seconds in which you don't have shield, but do you have the mana for that? And do you need to get Zealotry to get this increased cooldown if you have battle momentum? That's kind of what it boils down to. There's a lot of abilities that reduce cooldowns and stuff, but if you just get battle momentum, it's just better than all those other abilities. So that's kind of why I think it's best to just grab battle momentum, because as long as you're attacking minions, as long as you're hitting things with your auto attack, it's going to be more impactful than Zealotry could ever be. And of course, searing attacks, don't get searing attacks. Judgment is the way to go. There are rare situations where sanctification can be a thing. Now, I actually don't have any replays that are going to really emphasize sanctification, and we'll have to visit that in a later episode of the Daily Quest. But today it's all going to be about Judgment, so we'll just tell you to stick with Judgment for now. There's definitely cool potential with this ability, because this, while channeling, everyone in your circle, it's a big circle on the map, is invulnerable except you. So, in theory, you could talk about getting Divine Shield with Uther and grabbing Sanctification, and then Uther makes you invincible, and then you make everyone else invincible. And that sounds super broken, but typically what happens is disengaging. So, I mean, if we want to just throw a quick theory craft out there, we do Uther, Tyrael, Thrall. We grab Earthquake so no one can run away. You grab Sanctification so no one can hurt anyone. You grab Divine Shield to keep that Tyrael alive. And you have an invincible, perfect composition that can never die when you engage, and they can't get away. On paper, sounds great. Actually executing that, probably not so great. Burning Rage, cool level 13 talent. It's neat. Angelic Absorption. Enemies that attack you while they're shielded grant you health, so this is just additional sustainability. But at the end of the day, imposing will ends up being very impactful in those team fights, just reducing the attack speed and the movement speed for anyone that hits you. And especially when we think that Tyrael as being kind of a melee counter in some ways. If Tyrael is very good against someone like Illidan because of the fact that he can be used very defensively in terms of helping blow up the Illidan and stop the Illidan's aggression. And then we have Angelic Might. You gain 25% increased damage on your next basic attack for each target hit by Smite. So that's cool. That's cool. Definitely can make Tyrael bursty. I've never seen a very successful, impactful, aggressive DPS Tyrael, but it's not out of the question. I think this could be a fun talent to try to play with that. And going to level 16, we've got the Blade of Justice. After teleporting to Eldra's Might, your next 3 basic attacks within 5 seconds deal 75% more damage. Obviously, if you grabbed Angelic Might, you could make this a very bursty. So you use the Eldrin's Might, you smite, and then suddenly your basic attacks hit like a truck. And if you grabbed Searing attacks, maybe we should make a Wonky Wednesday out of that because that actually sounds pretty cool. But that's another story. Holy Ground to create a ring that blocks enemies from entering the area teleported to. I've actually seen a lot of really great utility of this because this can make your Eldrin's Might ridiculously strong for zoning. You can literally make it so you can just block out areas, block out paths, and do some incredible body blocking. So this is more than worth considering grabbing. But this is something that requires a little bit more coordination and advanced positioning to really maximize the effectiveness of. Because if you do have a team that can really body block and they're just locked down, you guys are on Skype or comms or whatever, and you can coordinate with Holy Ground, this is something that you can make the sickest plays with. So definitely encourage using this, but only if you're really confident in your ability to just body block people, because this impact could also kill your team. Or only blocks enemies, so I'm actually now that I think about it, it shouldn't block allies. So actually, I retract that last statement. Salvation Shield is 25% stronger for each allied hero that gets shielded. Cool. But at the end of the day, Blood for Blood is just such a good talent, and had to choke back a few choice words there. Blood for Blood is just incredible. It really is. I mean, if you stack Blood for Bloods, we actually saw a tournament this past weekend, one of the matches where we saw a team running with triple Blood for Blood. It's 15% of your total of an enemy's total health pool. Like 15%, raw percent, not a damage number. So a tank, it's 15% of their health pool, period. 3 of them, guess what? That's 45%. That Diablo, if you have 3 Blood for Bloods, every minute, you can just take half of his health away, 45% gone. So this is why we tend to see this paired, and then again you'll have like a Vala on your team that has that, and maybe another one on your team, but having 2 to 3 Blood for Blood stacked is really quite good. And then when it comes to 20, typically would say Seek the Hardened Shield. Angel of Justice, very worthwhile in getting, especially if you're doing a blow-up style. And Nexus Blades, if you're going for a damage build with the Searing attacks, with the Angelic Might and the Blades of Justice, then you would go Nexus Blades, and you'd just be very in your face, I'm going to kill you kind of Tyrael. That's not typically what we see. But guys, we've got some replays ready for you, loaded up, prepared, ready for action. These were from the ESL playoffs, and I'm just going to be utilizing the fact that I create content for ESL to utilize those games. So let me just find those replays. And we're going to look at this game on Cursed Hollow first. Now, this game was 2-Arc versus Tempo Storm. And you know what? 2-Arc is probably, when we think of Tyrael, you think of 2-Arc. They're kind of the only team that was running him for a very long time. Now, we actually saw Tempo Storm, 2-Arc, and Cloud9 Maelstrom, 3 out of 4 of the teams in the North American playoffs all play Tyrael. But 2-Arc by far had the most success and the most use with the hero. So the first game, we're definitely going to be jumping into that. So let's just boot that right on up. We can switch over to our transitional screen and get ready for this. Yes, I'm clearly stealing content. Stealing all the content. All right. Loading into this game. We're just going to let it fast forward a little bit. We're going to pull up those talents, and we're going to look at what these compositions are. So on the side of Tempo Storm, that's going to be Malfurion, Tassadar, Nazeebo, Illidan, and ETC. On the other side, well, that's Uther, Tyrael, our boy who we're talking about today, Chubbs Trader, and Quibsy. And one thing that I really like about what Tyrael provides is there's 2 things that he's incredible at in this matchup. Now, looking at the enemy team, KO. What do you think about when you think about Nazeebo? You think a Ravenous Spirit. Now, in this patch, we've started to see Gargantuan finally get some play because they made a lot of changes to it. So Gargantuan's great and all, right? But Ravenous Spirit is definitely a threat, and Judgment is one of the best responses, sure ways of just eliminating that Ravenous Spirit. Now, it's a heroic for a heroic, but still, it's you know, Diablo, I think, was banned out in this game, and it's just another sure great option to stop the Ravenous, which is always going to be a massive threat. But on top of that, Illidan, who is another big damage dealer that likes to get in the front line, if he overextends just a little bit and then the Judgment comes when he's separated from the rest of the team, you can then proceed to blow him up with, you know, maybe whatever is around, you know? It's all situation dependent, but then Uther follows up with a stun, and suddenly that Illidan is in a terrible place. So that's the kind of things that we're going to be looking for in this game. So let's just follow Tyrael for a little bit. He's just going to be laning. We have the game in fast forward. Typically, Tyrael's early game is a lot of just laning. That's how warriors are. You know, Tyrael is actually one of the best laners in the game. The amount of damage he can just soak up with a shield, he just pushes in with those minions, gives them their nice little bonus, and they just go forward and they do their thing. But Panucci, he's being pretty conservative with his mana. He doesn't want to constantly spam all his abilities, and that's something I want to point out. Just because you're you know, in the lane doesn't mean your abilities are off cooldown, doesn't mean you need to use those abilities that are off cooldown. And actually, did they set this up? Oh my goodness, Blizzard made it so my hotkeys actually go to the hero. So nice. We can hit 5 to go to ETC, and then 7. That's Tyrael. So fancy, Blizzard. Well, the first tribute is spawning, and we can see it's in the top center. And just another fun fact, if you guys were not aware, let's slow the timer down. The first tribute will always spawn either here in the top center or here in the bottom center. Fun facts. The soldier will be able to pick that up uncontested, as Tuark was a bit slow to the rotation, but you know, they're not losing a lot of soak. They're missing someone in bottom, and Nazebo is in bottom. Ooh, no, the vision is set to 1 member, so we'll set it to everyone. And well, they are losing soak in bottom now that Nazebo is down there, since we didn't have vision of that. So that's good. That's good for tempo. Not the best for Tuark, but experience is quite even right now. We can just pull up, not that tab. Not that tab. Yeah, that tab. And we can see all the damage done in this game, and experience is nowhere. Experience actually isn't a thing, apparently. So I'm just going to stop trying to find it. Well, at this point in the game, we see the bruises were picked up. That's good. That's dandy. Makes everyone happy when the bruises are picked up. Is there actually Fog of War? I've actually broken the replay client. And Soldier is going to be able to get out of the situation, but Tyrael is just staying in the top lane. And we can just kind of hit that fast forward button again, because Tyrael is actually going to stay in the top lane for a good chunk of the game. But let's review his build very quickly. He's got the Purge Evil, that's the additional damage. He's got the Amplified Healing, and he's got the Battle Momentum. And that's quite nice. That's pretty much what we expected to see in these games when we talked about the talents prior to this first game. But we're going to see how that pays off, because Battle Momentum, I mean, he's got these 12-second cooldowns. It's 12 seconds here for Eldarin's Might. It's 12 seconds here for Righteous, and I believe it is 7 seconds here for Smite. So Smite he can use a little bit more liberally. Ooh, this is a pretty nice engagement, but tanks are just doing tank things. People are dying. Good for them, good for them. They only care about Tyrael. So game, let's pick up the pace. Oh, that's dizzying. Let's slow it down one. Panucci gonna have to hearth home, as he did in fact lose this little war to ETC, but ETC is gonna be going home to get that mana, because this next tribute fight could provide Temple Storm with a curse. So that's why we have Tyrael here. He's the front line. They know they need to fight over this. Both teams level 9, so we're getting close to those heroics. But Temple Storm not able to pick that up. Now, Tuark, they were successful in picking up that tribute, but look at this aggression. Soldier going in the front line. He's doing a lot of damage to that Illidan, and it looked like Panucci was super overextended. We can actually just rewind and look at that one more time. That's the other great thing about Tyrael, is he can provide like this target. He's this target for the team right now. They want to go back, but they realize they kind of had to float. and they switch their focus to Panucci because, well, he's in front of them and they don't want to overcommit, and then he just Eldrune Mites out of the way. And that's just really beautiful play, just really nicely using his flexibility as a tank, because not a lot of tanks can just fly or teleport to any target location around them. Chen, sure, he can, if there's an enemy, he can fly and kick to it. And Diablo can shadow charge to an enemy that's near him. But it's really just like ETC, he has his dash forward, and yeah, Eldrune's Might for Tyrael has incredible flexibility. He can even go over walls. He can go over anything to really maximize the situation. So just makes himself that target in the front line, soak up as much damage as he can, and then he just gets out. So Tyrael just going to continue roaming around. Level 10 hit for both teams, and we will see the Judgment picked up. And looking at the enemy side, yes, Nazebo did opt to go for Gargantuan over picking up the Rapid Spirit for various reasons. I mean, yes, there's both the grenade available on Tychus, and there's the Judgment available here, and Uther. So there's a lot of stuns on the sides. It's not just because Panucci's on Tyrael that KO was kind of, you know, deciding to go with Gargantuan, but Gargantuan has actually picked up a lot of steam in these recent games. So we do have this next tribute spawning. Turek does once again have to defend this because Tempo Storm would in fact pick that up. I see Fax in the chat saying this is deja vu because you just watched this game. And they're doing a good job. I mean, Tempo, they're set up here, but we do have all 5 members at this point in time. And there is a big stage dive in the back line. Tyrael has to go forward to try to provide this flank. Big Divine Storm comes in, and then the Judgment follow-up to lock down Dreadnought. Combos. It's actually just beautiful, the amount of lockdown they can get. Watch Malfurion here. ETC stage dive, here it goes. I wish I could put it in slow-mo. Just watch Malf. They realize he's a little bit far forward. Goes in with the stun, follows up with the Divine Storm, and then Judgment after that, completely eliminate him. And during that, the rest of that, the team has been fine. Now, Furious D is getting rather low, and he's going to end up falling. But, all things considered, that's healer for healer at this point. Tychus goes down in the Odin because he's a big target. Chubb's backing up. The Metamorphosis going in. Gonna try to chase down Chubbs. The Ghost of Uther is doing wonders right now. Chubbs is gonna live? Oh my god, the overextend. I remember this now. Soldier does die. They did end up losing the curse. Now, they did trade, since Illidan overextended, they did trade a little bit. Actually, did Illidan glitch over that wall? It looked like his W pushed him through that wall. He was like on the edge of it right there. He was actually from the flip. He like landed on the wall. And that was rather interesting. I'm just going to fast forward to it. I just want to see it one final time. Oh, went too fast. Yeah, he just kind of like landed on the wall. That's pretty weird. Unfortunate for Soldier. Chubb's going to get out, live another day, and rip Illidan. All right, so back into Tyrael's life. Tyrael's going to hearth home. He's going to get some coffee. He's going to heal up, get nice and happy. And then here in the bottom lane, we've got these guys. They're cursed, but they're pushing. These Giants, they don't care. They just want to push. They have nothing else to do with their life. Malph's going to clean that up. Tyrael's going to rotate around. And, well, everything is going down good and dandy. Tyrael, he wants level 13. He wants additional effectiveness. Now, notice his heroic cooldown, it comes off cooldown really quick. It might look like it's a long cooldown with that 80 seconds. 80 seconds is pretty short as it is, and you throw a hero, you give that hero battle momentum, and that cooldown is actually negligible. So they're going to be starting on this boss. He has Judgment. They have all of their heroics available. Temple Storm, not so much. They got to wait for those cooldown timers, but it's just going to be trading of the bosses, and Tyrael's just going to keep soaking, going around dodging, doing his thing, conserving his mana the best he can, because Tyrael, not the most mana efficient in terms of all heroes in the game. And we can slow things down here because a little bit of feeling each other out, trying to get aggressive, and look at that. Look at that combo onto Dreadnought. That's their priority target each and every fight. They throw that grenade out, and he just follows up with the Judgment. Displacement onto lockdown, onto another stun if available. And it's just cookie cutter like aggression. This is the aggressive style Tyrael that just allows him to blow up targets, because with any other hero, sure, you could hook him, but the Judgment is so much more like you know, guaranteed then a hook, and they just blow him up. And now Uther, he's still got his normal stun ready for action whenever they need it. He did use Divine Storm in that situation, but they pick up a kill, and this nets them a lot of aggression. It hits level 13 first for them. They get control of the map. Yeah, bosses are pushing in both lanes, but now they can just put this aggression on mid, because Tempo Storm, they want to stop that boss, so they can't actually afford, since they just lost, remember, they can't afford to kind of just sit around and like wait to see if Turak's actually going to push in. And once they kind of disperse back, once they decide to take other things on the map, that's when Turak just kind of steps back forward, and they do take out that fort. Nicely done, just really nice positioning by the team in that situation. But Tempo, they're just kind of maintaining a pretty good position on the map. They're making sure they defend that boss well. They keep their fort alive. They picked up Giants and picking up Bruisers. And Turak, they're now finally defending that boss, which actually got completely through that wall and almost took out the well. And they're going to be able to pick up these Giants if they decide to just rotate on up after clearing this wave. Pretty standard stuff. So level 13, that's when we see Imposing Will. And this is when Tyrael becomes pretty obnoxious for pretty much all damage dealers, because when he has that shield on, that's 50% slowing on their movement speed and 50% slow on their attack for 2 seconds. So anytime that we see an Illidan go in and happen to flip over that Tyrael, that Illidan is in a bad place. He's just not happy with his life one bit, and that's only when the shield is active on Tyrael. So that's something we got to watch out for. That's something that the enemy team has to constantly be conscious of. They have to be thinking, is there a shield active right now? Do I have to worry about Imposing Will? And then they're just kind of pushing forward, filling each other out. It's 1-0, and a nice big stage time going in, but they do a nice job with this. They force back KO a little bit with the Judgment. Arthmon is down to almost nothing, but Tyrael, he's just constantly in their face, constantly body blocking, doing everything he can to be obnoxious, doing everything he can to slow down their movement speed, and Soldier in the backline does get blown up. So it's been a nice distraction. The Amplified Healing is doing wonders, keeping him alive when he probably shouldn't be alive at this point in time. And then we can see Aldurin's Might will be used to go forward and just pick off that kill. He doesn't necessarily always use it instantly. He throws his sword down, and then he considers going in with the Aldurin's Might to finish off the kill if he knows the situation is safe. He's a little bit cautious, because if you know that's a guaranteed kill, yeah, you can just Q and teleport straight back to your Aldurin's Might. But didn't necessarily do that. And we do have Swarkrons here subscribing, so hopefully I didn't butcher your name too hard, but you, sir, welcome. Thank you for subscribing, my friend. Okay, back to the game. Hypa, disengage. And Tyrael just continuing to roam around. We do have him just kind of sitting here on his reindeer. He's just going to teleport away. And then these Bruisers spawn. They're going to take care of those and pick them up nicely. Now, picking up these Bruisers, that's going to give them, you know, a little bit of map control. That's what it's all about. Maintaining that map control 1 minute and 15 seconds until we do have this boss spawning. And they are at curse point. So one more tribute will give them a curse. We'll slow things down, as this is surely going to be a fight. Because Tempo Storm, they don't just want to give it up. There's no real reason for, but actually, there's no real reason for them to fight either. So for whatever reason, they concede because of the positioning on Turak. They decide it's not worth them fighting, and that's something that's fine to do. If you feel the risk is too high because they're already set up and your team can't get in a position with a composition where you have Nazebo, I mean, that's really their only hero that kind of needs to be set up. They just decide to back off. That's perfectly fine because of the stun and burst potential. The number of times they've just removed Malfurion from fights is actually pretty significant, so you got to respect that. Now, Panucci in the front line, just going to continue to be obnoxious. He's actually, I love the Lightning Shield on him. It's just a lot of synergy when he's in your face the way he likes to be, and we're just going to look for that judgment. He's looking for that target to step forward a little bit too much to the point where they can eliminate that target very handily. And with Illidan going forward, that is an option, but he's decided to go for KO, and he should use it here. Yes, he goes forward towards KO. He notices he gets a lot of damage done, but there is no follow-up because his team was getting pressured hard for that Illidan. It's just nicely done by Tempo Storm. He saw his window, didn't actually end up following up with the rest of the team. That Divine Storm hitting 3 targets is really nice. It is allowing Panucci to stay in this front line. Again, the Amplified Healing is really just keeping him alive, and he's just using that Aldurin's Might to just bounce back and forth. And sometimes you'll see him throw the Aldurin's Might forward just to provide a threat. The enemy team has to say, okay, Tyrael could be in our face. We have to respect that. We have to respect the sword. Even if you don't always teleport to it, it's still like presence. And that's all a tank is. A tank is all about peeling and providing a presence in fights. And yes, body blocking and all those other things are great, but grade one, just day one stuff is like you want to like just have a presence and a threat for the enemy team, and that's exactly what he did. So I like this call. They go back to restore his mana. Again, Tyrael, his mana does go down pretty quickly. He just wants to get that nice and fresh before they re-engage here on the Tempest Storm, who is starting the boss. There is a kind of early stage dive by Glaurung, and they might be able to capitalize on this. Again, the Judgment is ready in just a few seconds, and Tempest Storm is in full on retreat. Before we resume with this, I'm actually getting driven insane by the mouse scroll. Disengage that. Yeah, now I can't move the camera with my mouse. Only middle click. So nice. They're re-engaging now that this is happening, but they just use stage dive. Their heroics are all on cooldown on the side of tempo, and Tuark, they just pop their Odin, and they are ready for battle. This is looking phenomenal for them if you just look at the heroic cooldowns. Now, this is information that Temple Storm should know in their head, but they're not necessarily fully aware of, but they are, in fact, going to be backing up. Tuark forced them off, but the Golem did leash, so the Golem back to full health. They got to be concerned about that. They might just decide this actually isn't worth it because the next tribute can't be that far off in terms of time right now. So the Eldruin's Might, once again, that is an option for him. This would be a terrible situation. The Temple's not too afraid. Illidan's just standing on top of it in kind of anticipation of the potential of Tyrael teleporting in which you could just blow him up, but not going to be the case. Just going to pop that shield, move forward. He's got the Imposing Will, and you see how much Arthlon gets slowed down. I just want to emphasize that, the Imposing Will, really quickly in this fight. How much Arthlon gets slowed down. So you'll see Arthlon attacks Tyrael, who has that shield on, and you'll see his movement speed. So just watch the Tassadar here. Look how slow he is. That's 50% reduction just because he threw one attack on a Panucci for 2 seconds. That's why Tyrael has some really cool flair to him. That's why Imposing Will is a really great talent, because if you're a melee and you hit that and then you just can't get away or whatever, you can't chase, it's a big deal. And, well, Tyrael in the front line, as always, he is the tank. Once again, looking in, Glaurung trying to peel for him, and there's the Gargantuan. The Gargantuan's a bit separated, taking a lot of damage. Tyrael uses Eldruin's Might to get back to safety, and there is that Metamorphosis coming out. And Soldier, he gets hit with the Shrink Ray. He's getting hit with that Imposing Will. Panucci is very low at this point in time, and will end up just using Eldruin's Might, and he even juked my brain. I, didn't see where he went for a second, so we're going to rewatch that because of how nice of a play that was. Panucci just can get out of so many situations. So again, we're just revisiting that last fight. Panucci gets incredibly low. Illidan's just kind of going and dishing out that damage. You see Soldier just dealing it out. Panucci's going to get really low here. Watch for Eldruin's Might. Just throw his sword right here, teleport through it immediately, and Ancestral Shield then connects at the last possible second, keeping him alive. Judgment onto Dreadnought. They're quickly blowing through his health pool, but again, he's got that really nice ice block to stay alive. Furious D with a very clutch shield, but Dreadnought will ultimately end up falling, and Tuark, with so many close calls, turns around, taking 4-0. Tassadar hearthing in the back line. Tuark has every reason to get aggressive right now. There's just so many plays that work specifically because of Tyrael. Any other tank couldn't have made a lot of those very specific maneuvers in that fight. Being in this overexposed position to soak up a lot of abilities and then just falling back. Being exposed again and then just falling back. And this is a clean, decisive win with some really high-level Tyrael play. And I had to emphasize this. I had to talk about this today because of how crisp it was and how impactful. If Tyrael had died in a lot of those situations, the fight changes. The whole fight goes the other way around. Tempo Storm gets that first blood, and they just keep moving forward because they lose that. But that Judgment impact that it had afterwards, after the Ancestral just barely kept them alive, and then that Judgment follow-up, it's beautiful stuff. And, this is why we're going to start seeing Tyrael played more and more and more, because, well, it's really cool. Now, am I saying that Tyrael's better than ETC? No. Am I saying that Tyrael provides a very specific role that is very good and shuts down other kinds of heroes and fits its own place? Absolutely. And it was just really refreshing watching this game like this. Let's see what time it is. Let's see if we got time. Yeah, we can do another game. It's going to be much of the same. We're going to see how Tyrael is handled in the hands of a different player. We're going to switch over to look at a replay from King Caffeine. Let me just go to the next replay. Product placement. Oh, I should whip my hair in the wind when I drink that. All right, let's find this replay. Now, King Caffeine, we got to see a game where Tyrael was played in a rather different composition. Now, once again, there was definitely a response from the Tyrael in this game, and you're gonna see a very unique game here. This was one of the coolest reactionary games, one of the most convincing just responses to a draft I've ever seen, and I believe Tyrael was the last pick. Justin, hit me up after the show today, and I will respond to that. Just stick around till after this game, because then we're just going to start streaming. Ooh, do I have some camera delay? I think it's okay. I'm in the fog. I'm in the mist. All right. Let's load this up. Now, this is going to be Cloud9 versus Tempo Storm. This was, I believe, the finals of ESL, if I'm not mistaken. And honestly, this game was really cool because of the way they responded to the composition. Now, I talked about Tyrael and being very useful versus someone like Illidan. Well, guess what? They've got a Nova. And if you can find a Nova out of position, you can find a Nova just kind of get her with the Judgment in general. She is in a terrible place. Not only does Judgment do a decent chunk of damage to her, but it locks her down for 1.5 seconds. It makes her incredibly vulnerable. So she's another great person to pick up that Judgment against, or just Tyrael in general. So loading up the game, Cloud9 versus Tempo Storm. We've got Purge Evil picked up once again. That's just the additional damage, and we can see Ranger's Mark. So Ranger's Mark typically leans towards a more pick comp style, and we also see Jaina. So there's the burst potential, the stun potential between Judgment and Divine Storm, and just Uther in general. And then Lunar Flare, Hunter's Mark, and Jaina, they've really got a lot of potential to just blow people up. And you can see they're just looking to do just that at the start of the game. They're getting aggressive. They're hiding in those bushes. These two frail gales, as I like to call them, they can really just blow people up. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this game unfold. Now, you can already see Soldier. They miss completely with the Blizzard. It doesn't matter because they've got the stun, they've got the Hunter's Mark, they've got the Lunar Flare. They'll follow up with the stuns. Pretty much anyone's going to die. And Caffeine has to back up here. He's just going to mount up. And he probably already tapped the well, considering. Arthon considered it. Goes back home. Caffeine going to be all right. Let's just kind of keep following Caffeine. So let's just fast forward the game a bit. There's going to be a lot of ganks happening across the map. Tyrael opted to just wait out for his well. He's going to stick around, make sure you can soak his lane. If there's ever a situation where you can get away and continue soaking your lane, you should do it. Because having that experience is crucial. We can see they're getting a little bit ahead. They've got those 2 kills. And we're just going to kind of get a little bit further into the game so that we can actually start to see this Tyrael play coming into action. So there he goes, just using the Eldrarune's Might to just kind of put pressure forward, juke back, pressure forward, juke back. Roaming around, making sure he just soaks, because that's really all his life is worth right now, is soaking. And he's going to go start on these bruisers. So 0.25 to 3 kills. Nothing crazy. He's just hiding in the bush, soaking. Once Red leaves, he destroys those minions. Same here. Once he knows he's safe, he just throws out a single smite. And I guess the positioning on his smite is something worth talking about. Making sure your smite hits as many targets as you can. You see he used... let me just go back a little bit more. Once you see his smite thrown down, he tries to hit everything because it has that width. So he's going to rotate up, and then he's going to come down to this pack of minions, and we'll see that smite go down. And it's just, he hits, I think, all of them. He might not have hit that one. But it's just, you always want to maximize your abilities. It's the same kind of deal with Rhaegar. If you throw the Lightning Shield, you want to get into the middle to do that. So, all right, they're just going to keep pushing forward. We're just going to keep powering through to get Tyrael's talents unlocked. So far, it's the same exact build that we saw in the previous game, where we do have Amplified Healing, Battle Momentum, and Purge Evil. And that Purge Evil, again, gives him 25% more damage when he casts Smite. So just kind of going forward, smacking away at this tower. If he's going to be uncontested by Dread, Dread doesn't even want to try to fight him because he knows he's not going to win. He's just making sure he kills the minions, making sure he soaks this lane, and he's just doing the best he can to make sure he gets that max experience. And we do have Glaurung here in this Plant Terror starting to provide a bit of aggression from the side of Tempo Storm. That's the first Plant Terror of the game. Now the kill's still in favor on the side of Cloud9. As soon as Dunk is down here to cover the lane, that's something they coordinated. King Caffeine can go home to refill his mana. And once Dunk finishes this lane, he's going to be like, all right, King Caffeine's back here. I will continue to roam and try to gank, because that is the objective of Tyrande in this specific matchup. And Caffeine will continue to so-called lane. And it's just good, you know, synergy in the team, just good communication, coordination, the whole deal, if you will. But we're just really trying to get to that level 10. We're getting very close, and that's when things will start to get interesting as we see the heroics picked up at level 10. And we can see they're super close here on the side of Cloud9. We want to see them get picked up on both sides, though. So we'll just kind of wait till both teams have 10. You might get a little excited when you see some of this stuff on the side. Oh, well, what's that top one? Oh, oh. You guys already see what's happening here? Do you see? Do you see on the screen? Do you see what's happening here? We just saw Shadowstalk in the largest prize pool tournament in North America ever. We just saw Dunk Train Shadowstalk his team, get vision on one hero. The whole team flooded towards that hero. You can see this judgment. You can see this judgment. That Tyrael is in his face, just ready to smack him. And before the judgment even completely hits, the Hunter's Mark, I believe Hunter's Mark is going down. And we've got this Lunar Flare hitting. Let's watch that again. Alright, Soldier. Right? Soldier. Slow down, game. Team. Level 10. We're getting there. They hit 10. They select their heroics. And they cast Shadowstalk the second they think someone's there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tempo Storm had just dispersed. They had just left. They were not expecting Shadowstorm. I don't even know if they realize this, because 9 out of 10 games, 99 out of 100% of games in competitive, we see Starfall, not Shadowstalk. Everything else is completely normal. They don't even have 10 yet, but this is also why Tempo Storm got very aggressive. They have heroics in a convincing fashion before Tempo Storm. They use Shadowstalk. If you don't know how Shadowstalk works, it cloaks their entire team and it reveals the entire enemy team. They find Soldier and just... There's the judgment. So instantly, judgment goes down. They know he will be locked in place here. Dunk Train is in the front. He is perfectly ready for this. This is when he throws the Hunter's Mark down first, and at pretty much at the same moment, it's Hunter's Mark and Lunar Flare, and this is just instant blown up. Illidan couldn't actually do anything. His Warglaives of Antler enough are going to sit on the ground. And yeah, they're just going to rotate around. And this is when they start to get ridiculously aggressive. This is one of the coolest reactionary things I've ever seen. They saw Nova on a map like Garden of Terror, and they picked up Shadowstalk and Tyrael for Judgment, where they can just get ultimate vision and then just Judgment to people and blow them up. Especially, I mean, I was actually kind of surprised that we didn't see Dunk Train get Lunar Blaze in this game at level 7, because that increases the range in which you can cast that Lunar Flare to get even more, you know, just confirmation on those kills from further away. There's a little bit more flexibility, but I guess Dunk Train's just always going to be on the hip of his team so that he can know he can get those Lunar Flares down where he has to be. And it's just really, really fun play. So we'll just speed this up while Taylor runs around doing things, and we're gonna spam out. Uh-oh. I missed that fight, so we're just backing up. And we can see Shadowstalk's use here, again, and the way that Tyrael capitalizes on it. Team report, something happening up here, and we can just see them going up. They don't even need Shadowstalk in this situation, apparently. And Tyrael just gets in there with the Aldruin Might, or excuse me, with the Judgment and Druin Might. I got Uther confused with Tyrael for a second. And KO and Fro take a lot of damage, but Tyrael gonna body block just for a second onto Soldier. Not like it matters. Hunter's Mark gonna help him out. Throw that Smite down. This is looking pretty good for Tempo Storm in this fight. The Ancestral connecting on Soldier at a good point. That's a good point in which you get the heal off. It's just a very safe ratio in which you would use. Nicely done. And King Caffeine just going to roam around the side to provide any peel if needed. But with Uther down, they're probably going to be a little bit more passive than aggressive. But again, they still have that all those heroics available very, very shortly after, but not even going to need it. Going on to Glaurung with that Shadow Stalk. He tries to juke with the Shadow Charge, but it's not going to end up being enough in that situation, and this is going to allow them to get their first plant terror of the game. So we'll just keep fast forwarding to follow this Tyrael onto his quest to be a happy, angelic butterfly with his blue wings. And they're just going to be seen by that far sight on Rhaegar. Just good map awareness, making sure they know that they are perfectly safe to go down to the bottom part of the map, while we do have Cloud9 getting very aggressive in the front. Now they pick off a Viking, they're constantly trying to use those Vikings to soak, but you know, if you can snag a few Vikings here or there, it works out pretty well. And we can see the vision of Tempo Storm. Well, they have a good idea of where the vision is. We can actually see this is their vision right now. This is the vision of Cloud9. So when Shadow Stalk goes down, they have eyes everywhere. The second that Shadow Stalk is used, they have confirmation that the rest of Tempo Storm is here, but there is a lone Rhaegar all by himself, and they were already en route because they suspected this, but it's just that confirmation that allows them to get ridiculously aggressive. And even with that beautiful ancestral healing, they just absolutely blow him up. And they have a good idea of where the rest of Tempo is. We just saw Vala flicker. This is, again, we'll run it with Tempo Storm vision, or excuse me, Cloud9 vision right now. And they're just kind of going in, forcing them back, doing everything. You know what? We're actually going to sit on Cloud9 vision for the rest of this game. It's probably something we should do because we can start to speak about decision making with their specific vision now that that's something we can actually utilize in the replay client. So I'm glad I did that on accident. Well, the Plant Terror moving forward, smacking away on this. This is, of course, one of the lost Vikings in that, and that's kind of the great thing about Vikings on a map like this, because he's soaking top, he's got a Viking down bottom soaking, and he's got a Plant Terror in the middle of the map, giving them this ridiculous experience advantage. And yes, the usefulness of this blow-up composition with Tyrael, Jaina, and Tyrande is a big part of that experience lead because of their 7 kills to 1.75 kills. But Vikings do have a big place in that, a big part in that experience lead. So we do have King Caffeine now helping out with this, and we'll just fast forward to some more team fight action as we do have that Shadow Stalk going down. The second I say that, KO gets connected with the Ancestral Healing, gonna stay alive, but look at the positioning here. He gets hit by that Apocalypse, so he's in a bad spot. He's over here, he's just buying Illidan's attention right now and just going over the wall. Illidan can't follow there. So in the end, he soaked up time from Illidan. That's really all he did in that fight. The Apocalypse was incredibly well placed by Glaurung in the fight. And he's coming back in, he gets those heals, but really they don't have any damage, so they can't continue to fight here. Vala and Jaina are both down, but it's still not a favorable situation for them to fight. Jump being used by iDream on Balog, but Balog, oh, Longboat Raid was forced out to keep himself alive in that instance. And can they actually lock down Soldier here? One more hit will do it, and yes, King Caffeine going to be able to secure that kill, but look at his mana. He's been using spells constantly to try to keep up in this fight, and he's just pretty much strained his mana pool entirely, so he does have to go back home. Uther just going to go starting on these guys. Balog is in fact the AoE Viking, so he does have that splash damage when he attacks. So that does help him quite a bit. He can use spin to win, and we do have the Vikings rotating up. Eric going to the top lane. He's continuing to soak mid with Olaf. Well, he would be soaking if the enemies were actually here, and they're going to be picking up these bruisers. Tyrael now has mana. He's going to be making it back into the fight. Here he comes, la-di-da-di-da, on his cow, or horse. And they're going to go back in, and there's really, I don't know how much longer this game is. I remember Tyrael just having a pretty strong impact in these team fights. So we'll see the next few team fights unfold, but we're sticking to that Cloud9 vision. They only really see Vala right now, and Dunk Train, they're just going to rotate up because they have to suspect that they're in the other half of the jungle with this next night phase spawning. And they decide to get very aggressive here. Alright, well they're going forward. We do see the Shadow Stalk was in fact used. So they did get vision of the enemy team for a brief moment, but they can't capitalize. But what they can do is they can capitalize on the seed. So even though they're not getting kills, they're getting that advantage in seed, which is going to allow them to just have terror, on terror. And they're going to pick up these seeds. Tempo Storm did summon their terror, so they used their 100 seeds in order to do that. And right now they're just making sure they collect as many as they possibly can. Again, they don't have vision on Tempo Storm. There's Illidan, so they've got vision on him. Showing up Tempo Storm's vision, they're here on this terror in full. There's everyone. Oh, man, we can see everything. But no, we're going to go back to Cloud9. They're rotating in. They're getting aggressive. Shadowstalk is still on cooldown, but they have everything else ready for battle. And the positioning here at Tyrael is huge. He can go over this wall with Endurance Smite. He can Judgment in from the backside. And really just, he wants to find that real Nova. And once he sees those clones starting to disappear, he goes on to Arthalon. The Judgment goes down in a really nice apocalypse, but he does manage to dodge it in the last second. So they do manage to blow up that Nova. And even though he point blank Judgmented the Nova, it's well worth it because it pretty much helps guarantee that kill. Lunar Flare just barely dodged by Dreadnought, but not going to be enough for him to stay alive. And Shadowstalk used almost... It was almost... that was actually definitely BM Shadowstalk using it at the end of the fight like that. I don't know if there was actually any reason in which he would have used it otherwise, so I want to double check. So that's where the Judgment killed. We see the Lunar Flare just barely being dodged by Dreadnought, but it doesn't matter because the other one's fight in his face. And yeah, that Shadowstalk was just kind of like... Gotcha. But they know that it's a pretty short cooldown. He has no real reason to save it at this point in time. So that was warranted in that regard. Well, they're pushing forward. They're going to blow up this keep in rather quick succession, and then they're going to look to end the game. And guess what? They are going to end the game. Very aggressive play again, and just using those positionings. And even in a point-blank situation, it's not like you have to travel a crazy distance to make Judgment worth it. With the Nova right next to him, it's still well worth using it in those situations. And it picked up a kill on one of their big damage dealers at the start of the fight, and you can never knock on that. I mean, that's if a tank has the potential to do that, that's actually phenomenal. So really just nicely done in both of those games by those Tyrael players. It's exciting to see Tyrael coming back into the meta in that regard. And yes, he has lost Casticide. Now Casticide made him a crazy good hero. He was a top picked tank all the time, but I like that he still has a place, in a very strong place in terms of viability for these kind of like blow up styles. And we've seen Tyrael used defensively for like when the Illidan is a little bit overextended, you just Judgment him and you just blow him up, and it's very good for that kind of play. And I don't think Illidan's going to be falling out of the meta anytime soon, so it's very good for that kind of style as well. So I think that's a pretty good overview of like the Illidan styles builds and just what we're seeing here being played by him. So hopefully that was informative. Hopefully you guys are happy to hop on the ladder and play some Tyrael soon, but I have a request. I need you guys to hop on the ladder, and I need you guys to play as Murky. And you might be saying, "What? Why on earth would I play Murky?" Well, let me pull up the Team Liquid thread. Let me get that loaded up here. Oh my goodness, I have it ready. What a guy I am. Bam! Team Liquid. Let me blow this up. These are the shows this week. Today is Tyrael builds and competitive compositions. That's what we just observed, my friends. Well, tomorrow's Wonky Wednesday. Every Wednesday is a little bit more weird. Well, with the new patch, it ruined and wrecked everything. All of my replays do not work, and I need Murky replays for tomorrow's show. I would very much like to observe, have a good time, and just enjoy Murky on April Fool's Day, because I can't do a serious show on April Fool's Day. It has to be Murky. So send me your best, your worst possible Murky games. If you're playing in Hero League, please clarify that in the email. I would very much like to do that. Brightwing will probably just be using competitive replays. If you guys had like some crazy Brightwing game where you did some awesome build and you want me to observe it, I will definitely check it out. I've received a overwhelming number of Heroes of the Door matches from people, which is like the coolest thing ever. So I'm gonna probably try to take a day or two today to look at Heroes of the Door matches and just kind of observe Heroes of the Door matches, which is really cool, and just try to give some advice and just general coaching. So there's a good chance that that's what I'll do on Friday. If it's like a more just kind of like lax show, it won't be necessarily a specific theme. It'll be more just like, we're going to look at Heroes of the Dorm stuff. But that's what's going on. Send me Murky replays, and you can send them to this email. It's just solidjakegg@gmail.com. It's very simple. So please shoot me over any game that you thought was a cool, good showing of Murky. Whatever. I just want to see fun play. I want the most ridiculous, aggressive murky games I've ever seen in my life. You don't have to do a specific build. I would like people to really experiment and do crazy builds. We're talking March. We're talking blow-up compositions with the Octo Grab, where you just get that pufferfish underneath them, you get the Octo Grab, and you just annihilate them the best you can. So please shoot me those replays at solidgg@gmail.com for tomorrow's show. So that means I need them by the middle of the day tomorrow, essentially by 1 or 2 p.m. ideally Eastern tomorrow afternoon. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to close out the Daily Quest number 15, and we're going to get ready to stream as we always do after the Daily Quest. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. This is where the VOD will end, and this is where the stream will continue.